Well, hello friends, and welcome to another Ask Zach. Today we are going to talk about body and neck woods and how they are tone influencers. So this is going to be fun. I did a hardware video, and now we're going to talk about wood. And yeah, so while you're thinking about it, if you've been enjoying the show and hadn't subscribed yet, go down in the corner and please subscribe. If you've already subscribed and been watching the show for a while, please go to askzach.com and you can pick up a t-shirt or a hat or a mug, or you can go down in the description. There's tip jar information. I appreciate you supporting the show. It's what keeps it going. All right, so let's talk about wood and tone. So just to preface this, I'm just going to stick to vintage Fender woods. I'm not going to go into exotics. I'm not going to go into Palfero or Babinga or anything like that, or ebony. I have nothing against those, but I'm going to stick to alder and ash and maple and rosewood. Maybe talk a little bit about basswood and pine. So here we go. All right, so we're going to start with this. And I need to thank Dan Strain, Telecaster Guitars, for letting me borrow some raw necks and bodies for this video. So thank you, Dan. All right, so this is swamp ash. Swamp ash is from the south. It is lighter weight. Northern ash is heavy. It's really dense and it's really bright. And that's all I'm going to say about northern ash, other than it was used by Fender in the 70s, and yeah, it's heavy and bright. So, but this is swamp ash from the south, and it absorbed a lot of water, and the cells got big, and then when it dried out, it's lighter weight. So this is kind of it was the standard Fender wood in the beginning. It was used on both Tellies and Strats. Then the Strat started using Alder in late 55, 56, and swamp ash, continued to be the standard Telly wood, again because the standard the standard color was blonde, and so ash was always used blonde, so it was kind of the standard color for a Telly. So most Tellys that you see out there, old ones, are swamp ash. So swamp ash is easy to identify because of its grain. So it has a lot of grain and it's open. And because of the open grain, they have to use a pore filler on there, before they start putting finish on it. And yeah, you can see here what it looks. This does have a layer of it has a sealer on here. It doesn't have a full-on finish, obviously, but then you can see here where it has no finish on it. So how does this influence your tone? Well, swamp ash is not a bright wood, but what it does, it has a liveliness. It is very dynamic, and it has kind of a quick attack. It has kind of a poppiness to it. And some people will take that as brightness, but it's not necessarily a bright wood. I think it's more of the attack that you're hearing. And yeah, and it's a great wood, and it never gets accused of being dead sounding. So that's swamp ash. Okay, here's the other wood. This is alder. Alder is pretty easy to identify because its lack of grain, it's not open, and it looks like cardboard. Yeah. So again, this has a sealer on it, but you can see here where it has no finish, and it just it looks like cardboard. It has some grain to it, but Fender started using this because it didn't have to be grain filled, so it didn't need the pore filler. So this was a little easier on production. You were able to skip a step, didn't have to do the pore filling. So alder influences the tone in that it has a bit more mid-range. It's also more compressed, and it's smoother sounding. So yeah, it doesn't have the quick attack that swamp ash does. And so this ends up, kind of giving you a smoother sound with more mid-range. So, yeah. So that's alder. I will mention pine because it is kind of a vintage Fender wood. Pine is similar to swamp ash in some ways, tonally. The biggest thing with that is pine is very soft wood, and so you can easily tell something's pine because you don't want to do it in the finish, but you can easily put your fingernail into the wood because again it's soft and it will relic and get beat up quite quickly with a pine body. Basswood ends up looking more like alder, but with almost no grain to it at all. And it again has that kind of sometimes, and it will be a little whiter or lighter in color than alder. But yeah, usually if you have a sunburst finish in basswood, usually there will be almost no grain at all. So there you have it. All right, now let's go to neck woods. Start with the classic. So this is the one-piece maple neck. This has no finish on it at all. So this is raw maple. You can see how white it is. It just has the piece of walnut here to put the truss rod in. Maple, it gets accused of being bright, but I don't really think it's bright. I think what you're hearing is the hardness of the maple contributes to a quick attack. And so it has a quick attack, but it has a good amount of fundamental note, and then it has a good amount of harmonic content where the notes, kind of bloom really well. It's a great neck wood, and works well. Then you have, of course, Fender in 58, 59. They shifted over to a separate rosewood fretboard, and it started off being slab like this. Then of course it went to a veneer, and then it went to a thinner veneer by 63. So how is this different than how is that different than this? Well, I think sometimes we hear with our eyes, and so there is an aspect where people think rosewood sounds warmer. I think what they're hearing is the difference in attack. I think this wood, it feels different to your hand, and I think sometimes you're hearing the feel. Rosewood, what I can say it absolutely does is having two pieces of wood changes the stiffness of the neck, and that tends to accentuate that fundamental and have less of the harmonic, kind of bloom thing going on. Yeah. And I think that the lack of hardness, that the rosewood is a little softer than the maple, I think that that does, contribute to the sound and maybe make it a little softer sounding, a little less of that attack. So then you have a third variation, which would be, maple cap neck. So you can see this one has no, stripe on the back, and these have all that hardness from the maple, and they have kind of that quick attack and kind of accentuating the fundamental of the note. Also, while I got this one out, I'll say, this is an interesting wood combination right here, because this is not a vintage one, but it's a copy of a vintage one, and down to the fact that it has an alder body. Well, alder with a maple neck is kind of an unusual combination, because ash was the standard wood that was used, because it was used on all the blonde finishes, and you had to pay more to get a custom finish, so the custom color. So only custom colors got alder. And so, of course, the paisley is an alder body. The tele-customs, whether it was sunburst or red or whatever color a tele-custom was, those are all alder. And then, of course, if you had a solid color, custom color finish. So, and of course, there's very few of those that were made in the 50s. So, yeah. So this is a maple cap neck. One of the really interesting combinations is a full-on maple neck with an alder body. Not a maple cap, but a solid one-piece maple neck with an alder body. And that's the combination that James Burton had on his 69 Paisley that he used. So you kind of get more of that mid-range thing, and you have, you know, kind of the attack and everything, and the bloom of the maple neck. You're gonna have to pardon me. I start, you know, sounding like some kind of wine connoisseur here, but it's hard here when we're talking tone. Another one would be Reggie Young. Reggie Young played a 69 Tele Custom, which again has an alder body and a solid maple neck. And that certainly contributes to a warmer, more compressed, you know, smoother tone. So, yeah. Then, let's see. This is kind of your classic, you know, combination. This is a telecaster, but it's got swamp ash body, one-piece maple neck, you know, and then of course you have the other contributors of flat pole pickup and brass saddles. You know, and you can see, and you can even see through the blonde finish. You can tell that that's ash. You know. This is my JV Tele, and this is alder. And so if you look here, you can see the grain. You know, it doesn't have the pronounced grain that ash does, but it has, you know, you can see grain there. If this was basswood, like on some of the later 80s and 90s Japanese Tele Customs, you know, this just kind of looks like generic wood with no grain to it. So, but this is alder. So you can see some finish there, and a nice little ding there. And this is my 67 Tele. And, you know, this is, of course, a maple cap neck with a swamp ash body. And it's a, you know, good, it's a little under 7.5 pounds. And this is my best Tele of the bunch. I mean, they're all different and they all have their own strengths. But if, you know, if I only had one Tele, it'd be this one. Here's some finishes worn away, and you can see that that's definitely swamp ash. So you can see where even some of the grain filler has come out and it's open there, because that's what it looks like. I mean, the grain is very, very open on ash. So this with an ash body and a maple cap neck, you get a very dynamic, a very quick attack, and you get a lot of fundamental. And it's a very, you know, cool kind of assertive guitar. And then of course, you know, you add the steel saddles and the staggered pole bridge pickup, and yeah, I don't know that it's twangy, but it's ringy, and it has a lot of has some cool qualities to it. So, all right, well, that's kind of today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll do another episode at some point where I talk about you know, pickups, and then talk about, you know, caps and pots and stuff like that. But yeah, we've done hardware. Now we've done body and neck wood, and and we'll keep on having fun in our tonal journey and talking about these tonal influencers. All right. I hope you all have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.